The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is the Clone Wars Report. What would normally be triumphant horns is instead evil laughter, which really makes sense for the arc that we're going to talk about. We're calling this one Maul Takes Mandalore. Like the Muppets Take Manhattan, but much, much darker, I think. Anyway, I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and the person making the great laughter is Ken Knapsack.
And also laughing at the Muppets Take Manhattan, my favorite Muppets movie growing up. Just loved that one.
It was a good one. I don't normally think that there should be kind of like crossovers between Star Wars and in the real world, but I'd watch a parody called Maul Takes Manhattan.
Essentially what we got here. I love this. Yes, love this thing. Just
very mad about tourists and the price of hot dogs. Just making Maul furious. Anyway, the episodes in this arc that we will be discussing are Season 5, Episode 1, Revival, written by Chris Collins and directed by Stuart Lee. Season 5, then Episode 14, Eminence, written by Chris Collins and directed by Kyle Dunleavy. Season 5, Episode 15, Shades of Reason, written by Chris Collins and directed by Bosco Eng. Season 5, Episode 16, The Lawless, written by Chris Collins and directed by Brian Kalin O'Connell. That really seems to be the shape of these big arcs in Season 5. Same writer for all of them, and then different directors. Ken, before we get into the summary, you have any big picture thoughts or emotions that you want to get out of the way before we dive into the summary?
I mean, the words are wow and whoa and cool. I mean, this is one of the biggest arcs in Clone Wars. It's the one I think people remember, particularly the episode The Lawless, right? That's up there for maybe best in the show. So much stuff in there. And you think you have it all in your brain. Oh, I remember this arc. Of course I remember this arc. And then you get there and there's so many little details that just make it amazing, even more amazing than you thought and remembered. So happy to just be celebrating this one.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lawless, I think, is up there, in contention for one of the best individual episodes of Clone Wars. For me, this whole arc really is does that happen in this arc too? Does that happen in this arc too? So it's so great. I was trying to think of capture the way it made me feel when I first saw it. We'll talk more about this, but I think it was so good. I felt guilt, like an almost guilt response. Like it was like ice cream in the morning. Like this isn't allowed, right? To have something be this good. Which maybe I'll process why really good things make me feel guilty. That's a different conversation.
Different podcast. Yeah.
Different podcast, but that was definitely my reaction. So I was really happy to go into this again with kind of the way we're looking at it with a critical eye, enjoying all the moments, but also looking at the big picture ideas. So can't wait to dive in. So let's do the summary. I failed to keep it short because so much happens in this arc. So many key moments, key players. So let's dive into the summary. Are you ready, Ken?
I am ready. This needs to be long. Should be long.
We'll see if you say that afterward. Here we go. Maul strikes back. Seeking to regain his power, former Sith apprentice Darth Maul sets out with his brother Savage Opress to build a criminal empire. Maul knows the Jedi will hunt him and he must build up his numbers to face them. Savage hopes to work together as brothers, but Maul quickly beats him in a fight, teaching Savage the true way of the Sith. There are no equals, only a master and an apprentice, and Maul is the master. The tortured brothers attack one of Hondo's pirate ships and terrorize the pirates into betraying Hondo. Meanwhile, Jedi Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi and Adi Gallia are on the brothers' trail. They observe Maul and his new pirate recruits advancing on Hondo's base on Florum. Despite their complicated history, Kenobi agrees to help Hondo and defeat the Sith. As the rival factions of Hondo's pirates blast away at one another, Kenobi and Gallia engage in a deadly duel with Maul and Savage. Adi Gallia is brutally murdered by Savage. Kenobi and Hondo retreat into the ruins of Hondo's base, which was recently destroyed by separatist bombardment. Kenobi draws the Sith away, fighting both. He repeatedly kicks Savage's leg, weakening him, then severs Savage's arm. Maul force pushes Kenobi away and runs to escape with his wounded brother, but Hondo has reconciled with his mutinous men, sparing their lives and bonding over their shared passion, profit. They race to raid Maul's ship of its riches, blasting at Maul as he runs. They blow apart one of Maul's large clawed robot legs. The two brothers make it to their ship and launch away in the escape pod before the ship crashes to the ground, spilling its bounty. Kenobi reports to the Jedi and Chancellor Palpatine. He fears Maul survived and seeks to unite the criminal underworld. He's told Maul is no threat and his focus is needed fighting the Clone War. But Kenobi is immediately proven correct. Near death, Maul and Savage are rescued by another enemy of Kenobi, Pre Vizsla and the Death Watch. They are taken to the swamp moon of Zanbar. Savage is given a new mechanical arm. Maul is fitted with his third set of robotic legs, finally ending up with slim, elegant yet deadly gams. Yes, deadly gams. Maul and Pre Vizsla strike a deal. They will work together to assemble an army, retake Mandalore, and wreak terrible vengeance on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Despite their similar pasts and aligned goals, both sides plan to betray the other. Maul and the Death Watch then kill, threaten, and cajole major crime families, the Black Sun and the Pikes, into joining their collective. They travel to Nel Hutta to demand control of Hutt space, but the Hutt Council fights back with a team of bounty hunters. A massive battle ensues. The bounty hunters retreat. Aruba the Hutt is slaughtered, and Maul and his army storm Jabba's palace. Maul offers the mighty Jabba to submit or suffer, and Jabba selects submission. With the Shadow Collective complete, Maul makes a new plan. The crime lords attack vital targets in the Mandalore capital city of Sundari. The Death Watch appears to swoop in and defeat the crime lords. They save the people of Mandalore, who then revolt against Duchess Satine's pacifist rule. Pre Vizsla is installed as the puppet leader of Mandalore, but Maul will wield the true power, using Mandalore as a base for his new criminal underworld. Mandalore is also the leader of 2,000 neutral systems. Their combined force can potentially overwhelm the Separatists and the Republic, creating the possibility of true galactic dominance. But Pre Vizsla springs his trap, arresting Maul. Maul and Savage easily escape prison and pick a new puppet leader, the traitorous Almec, who was imprisoned by Satine for trading on the black market and accidentally killing children with poisoned tea. Believing a soldier's honor is his weakness, Maul challenges Pre Vizsla to a duel. After a punishing and cool battle, Maul seizes the Darksaber, and with one stroke, Pre Vizsla's head is split from his shoulders. The Death Watch members are also split. Some pledge their loyalty to the victorious combatant Maul, but a faction, led by Bo-Katan, rebels, believing an outsider like Maul must never leave Mandalore. Almec lies to the people, saying Satine murdered Pre Vizsla, but Satine is not without her allies. She is rescued from prison by her nephew, Corky, and Bo-Katan's splinter group. Maul allows them to almost escape, knowing Satine will call her old ally and star-crossed lover Obi-Wan Kenobi for assistance. Satine is recaptured, but the call for help reaches the Jedi Council. With no evidence of Maul's involvement, Ki-Adi-Mundi sees it as an internal matter of Mandalore. Yoda feels the Jedi cannot act without the approval of the Senate. Knowing the answer will be no, a rebellious Obi-Wan borrows Anakin's beat-up old spice freighter, the Twilight, and flies to Mandalore alone. He breaks Satine out of prison, but the two are captured and brought before Maul. Hoping to break Kenobi's spirit, Maul brutally murders Satine. He leaves Obi-Wan alive, wanting him to feel his pain. With her dying breath, Satine expresses her undying love for Obi-Wan. A heartbroken Obi-Wan is rescued by Bo-Katan. She sends Kenobi away, hoping he will send the Republic army to depose Maul. Kenobi intuits the truth. Bo-Katan is Satine's sister, a tragedy that the two siblings found their alliance too late. Meanwhile, Chancellor Palpatine senses Maul's rising power. He travels to Mandalore in his true Sith Lord identity as Darth Sidious. Maul grovels and lies, claiming he built this empire to return to Sidious's side. Angered, Sidious attacks. A flurry of force chokes, pushes, and spinning crimson blades ensues. Sidious kills Savage Opress once and for all, and as Maul mourns over his brother's body, Sidious reminds Maul of the true reality of the Sith. There can be only two, a master and an apprentice, and Maul is neither. Sidious spares Maul's life, telling him he has another use for him. Sidious cackles as Sith lightning cracks from his bent fingers. Maul's screams echo out in the dark Mandalore night, and they all lived happily ever after, except for the many, many people who died. The end.
It's truly a happy ending in Star Wars, right? Yeah, one of the best.
It's one of the most brutal arcs. I put it in our canon section, and I'm sure we'll discuss it, but I just like this arc needs an in memoriam for major characters.
You're absolutely right. And I think your summary highlighted one of the best things about these 4 episodes. No Clone Wars episode has choff for wasted scenes or anything like that. No plot fillers, no, anything like that. But these 4 episodes, every scene packs a punch. There's so much going on, so much story in every beat. So I think that summary was almost too short, sir.
All right, I'll work on a longer one for the next time when we do Clone Wars Report 2 20 years from now or something. What do we think now? All right, let's get into this. What was your overall reaction to this arc? Love it, like it, struggle with it? Often we compare our reactions to our initial viewings. What do you got?
This whole arc can be summarized by one thought. Lots of ships flying and landing. That's what this whole arc is about, right? No. Man, do we spend some time watching ships fly in and land. A Filoni and Clone Wars trait, as we've talked about before.
Yeah, they love a good ship landing. Never cheated.
Good ship landing indeed. Now, my overall reaction, echoing what I said up top, is just, I love it. This is over the years when people would ask me about the Clone Wars, and we've said there's so many episodes, there's so many characters, so many beats. Sometimes it does kind of all mesh into one memory for me, but this is one of the arcs, particularly the Lawless, like we said, it just jumps out, and I know I can talk about it. I know I can remember it. It's just so good. And it's also weird, we've been tracking when these episodes originally aired. We're a few months past the sale now. This is January 2013. So this is in a weird era, and I was trying to remember my reaction to these episodes during that time. I almost think I was overlooking the Clone Wars already, because I was looking towards new content, new movies, and we hadn't got to the great April 2014 canon switch and confirming that this was still going to stand as canon, of course. So it's a weird time, but a good time, and this was our Star Wars at the time.
Yeah. So you obviously you did enjoy it at the time, but you were in that weird, like, is this telling us where Star Wars is going, or is this kind of already in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, I remember not really knowing, and I remember not having a ton of conversations about these episodes with my Star Wars friends who were fans of the Clone Wars at the time. It wasn't like, oh my God, did you see Sidious and everything? And it's like, it's kind of crazy to think that I might have overlooked it, but which just speaks to the excitement of the sale of the time and the great unknown of the movies and the content still to come.
That makes so much sense. And that I always love hearing what your experience was watching them as they came out. Because as I've said many times, I saw the movie and I had some problems with it. I now love the movie. Didn't have cable, never watched it. And I started hearing from friends, like, it's actually really good. And I had that kind of like, I got to get caught up. But then it was really this arc or the theoretical existence of this arc that made me go like, this is a priority. I saw that Kenobi and Maul 2-pack at Target. I was like, what? That's how I found out Maul was back, was seeing the action figure. Yeah. Being like, okay, I gotta know what this is about. And I've mentioned many times on the Clone Wars Report of enjoying episodes, but kind of speed watching, binging to be like, where's the Maul Kenobi fight? And when I finally got to this, and I'm watching it, and like in particular the fight between Maul and Pre Vizsla, where it's like it's a Boba Fett guy with a dark saber fighting Darth Maul. Like, why aren't there billboards about this? Why aren't there songs? Why aren't there people out on the street screaming about this? I think for me, your perspective about when it aired helps me, because I think this was so what fans of our generation were screaming for during the prequel era, right? Why isn't there stuff like this? That I was just like, I can't believe this exists, and it's so good, And then Sidious leaves the planet with 2 blades. Oh, and then anyway. So I loved it at the time. I was extremely happy to revisit it for this. I think it remains one of my favorite arcs. I think it's got that crucial defining Kenobi moment where he is not going to break, even though he's utterly devastated about this cruel tragedy that has happened. There is a ton of action, right? If you are in it in Star Wars to enjoy the action, this arc is a treat. There's violence, there's major character deaths, heartbreaking tragedy, but all of this arc for me, Ken, is there's never a moment where it feels like the action is cool, right? But it never ever gets away from all of the action is in service to this story that's like an essay on the rot of the dark side and on like the tragedy of what these kind of choices will bring to you. And we'll talk about that more, obviously, when we dive into the big themes. But it felt like I can really enjoy the sort of the thrill and the action, because the tone is always, none of these fights should have happened. You're like,
Right.
That feeling is so great. And then
Mm.
I continue to just enjoy it because the just absurd amount of lore and canon connections, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
the major Mandalore history, how it ties to, the Mandalorian show that's going on right now, seeing Sidious leave his seat of power, this, incredible moment for Kenobi, a scene that features Dengar, Jabba, and Darth Maul at the same time. Like, imagine being told that would exist in 1999. Like, eventually you're going to see a scene with Darth Maul, Jabba the Hutt, and Dengar all there. Like,
Yeah.
it still just blows my mind that this arc exists.
It made me think of Dengar and Empire. Like, someone asked the guy, he's seen Maul. He's talked to Maul. Like, he's fired up on Maul. That Dengar's got a lot of secrets in his head there that we didn't know yet. Yeah, no, you're so right. The action is so purposeful all the way through. And talking about when this aired, going back to reviewing the D Squad last week, we got a great response to the episode. Stephen Stanton kind of highlighted our episode. A lot of people, I enjoyed, Joseph, a lot of people tweeting going, wait, D Squad was controversial? Who doesn't like Weber? And some of it might be a little jokey, but some of it I thought was very true. But this going back to when this aired, the last 3 episodes, of course, of this arc aired after the D Squad. And that just kind of shows why, maybe at the time, the D Squad, you're like, get me to Maul, get me to Mandos, and you can overlook D Squad. So this is me propping up D Squad, I should say, and just highlights how big these episodes that we're talking about here today are.
Yeah, and I so loved watching back because, like, mea culpa. I did not get into the depth of the D Squad, and like, Frogman is funny, but where is Maul? And now it's been great to go back and really appreciate what is so great about Meeber Gascon, and then also appreciate this arc that I've always loved.
Absolutely.
All right, 4 episodes, 4 morals. Let's dive into the morals. The first is strength in character can defeat strength in numbers. One vision can have many interpretations. Alliances can stall true intentions, and morality separates heroes from villains. Which one of these is important to you? Which one of these works for baseball coaching?
All of them, and I don't mean to make any kind of grim, jokey reference to news right now, but all 4 of these morals are headlines I'm seeing every day in the world right now.
Yeah.
And again, don't mean to be a grim, dark, jokey guy there, but it's really powerful. The one that's jumping out to me, morality separates heroes from villains, is one I've almost literally quoted that to my parents recently in a political discussion. I will say no more. So that one particularly jumped out, and that being, this morality tale that we know Star Wars is. Mark Hamill's words are in my ears from the Empire of Dreams doc and so many other interviews. To just focus on that, and to focus on we'll get to the Maul and the Kenobi of it all. But that's a powerful one, and it's a powerful one because it's Star Wars and a tale of good and evil, light versus dark. What separates them? It's that line. That's morality line.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think a lot of these are very potent, and you could relate them to, I'm sure lots of us could relate them to things going on in our personal lives, and definitely the world. I think the morality separates heroes from villains. When I first saw that one, it's like, it is so simple and direct, but in a way I kind of like it, because it's like reminding you in the complexity to also bring it back to that simplicity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that moment with Kenobi, I love how much it brings it back to the simplicity of, like, Maul is caught up in sort of like hypocrisy and double dealing and lying and manipulation, and just like, and thinks that, he's got that cynical view that there isn't anybody who claims that they are a good person is lying and full of, bleep. And Kenobi sitting before him, and you're going like, yeah, of course I'm not going to break to the dark side. Like, that's my whole thing, is don't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's wrong, because it doesn't get you anything, and just like that simplicity of how horrific Maul thinks, like, I will, bring pain down on you, and then you'll break too. And Comey's just like, no, Of course not.
Yeah.
That's what separates us.
I love what you said about this kind of almost keep it simple, stupid type of approach, if you want to say a Star Wars kiss here. Because it's easy to get so caught up, like you said, cynicism, whataboutism, or layers and shades of gray. We love our shades of gray, and nuance is important to discussions, and all that's there, and all that's real, and all that's present. But I just love that the purpose of Star Wars is to deal with all that, but toss it all off when you're discussing these big things and take it down to these simple goals: the compassion, the hope, the empathy, all these things we hit on in almost every episode. And that's why this morality tale, really a fine, in focus morality tale in these episodes is important to the conversation. Yes to all that. Yes to these bigger conversations, but this is the line. Your morals, your choices. This is what's important.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. So with that, let's get into the big themes. What ideas did you feel were at stake in this episode? Or this arc rather, how did you break it down?
Well, not easily, I'll tell you. Jokes aside, not easily, because there's so many going on in this. The cost of vengeance and bad choices pops up in my head. Personal attachments, hey, that always pops up in Star Wars. Kenobi faces some big ones here. I even put down this idea of villains are heroes in their own stories. We hear that all the time, right? When it's a writing thing. Well, if you're crafting a good villain, he's got to believe he's a hero. And then you got Pre Vizsla pretty convinced that he's a hero and doing what is right. So loved all that, power and greatest goals. But here's two that really stood out to me that just kind of inspired me to take stuff from these episodes. But is what is true weakness, which is something that pops up in Star Wars a lot. And then what is your breaking point? You're talking about the Kenobi stuff. We're going to get to that. And that comes up a lot, the weakness one here. A lot of people love throwing that around. You're weak. Satine's weak. We're all weak, but I'm strong. And what are you basing your strength on? That's a big Star Wars question.
Yeah, no, I really, really like that. I think kind of dovetailing that for me, I at the end of the day, with all these different ideas, I really felt like there's this big picture that this arc is kind of an essay on the dark side ultimately. And not just like, the dark side of the Force, but like what the dark side of the Force represents, right? Because Pre Vizsla is not a Force user, but he is buying into the philosophy of the dark side, right? Which is all about strength, right? And all about wanting power, and that wanting power, but ultimately that power is only for you. And it makes true connection impossible, because, both Maul and Pre Vizsla in particular, and Sidious, are really embracing this view of everything is conflict. Even alliances are just to get what you need. And if everything is conflict, then somebody always has to be the loser. And I feel like what ultimately happens in this arc is like almost everybody loses. Because they are tied to this, winner takes all zero-sum game.
Yeah, this essay on the dark side, it's a great way to look at it. And you got the underworld here. And just I love there's all these loyalties, especially the ones from Maul and Pre Vizsla, they're just built on sand, right? There's no foundations of honor, driven by greed. And I love that it begins with this moment with Savage being like, hey, brother, share the glory? No. And then it ends with Sidious being like, no rivals. And there's this bookend of this big lesson of the Sith and the dark side.
It is absolutely a bookend with Maul saying like, this is the way I want to see the world. And by the end, sad, truly sad that he lost his brother in that sad moment of like, I'm not like you. I don't quite have this hunger for domination the way you do. And then, the tragedy of like, okay, if that's the way you want to see the world, Maul, then this is what the world is going to give you. So, I mean, the essay on the dark side for me was kind of like, that's the big picture, but like the very specific version of what's being talked about in dark side or morality is this idea of dominance versus alliance, right? Like almost all the characters define their power by dominating one another, right? In that they have to be on top either personally or their group has to be on top. And we see all these beats where they reject the strength that could come from truly working together, as equals. I think the idea of siblings is really important because we see it both literally and metaphorically, that it's,
Right.
Maul and Savage are siblings. Satine and Bo-Katan are siblings. Hondo's Shattered Forces becomes kind of, brothers against brothers. Even the sort of rejected alliance theme, to me, kind of gets tied up in the big picture Clone Wars story, that the alliance between the Republic and the Jedi is just this ineffective, broken mess at this point.
Yeah.
So there's all these ideas of dominance, all these ideas of alliances, maybe, but they fall apart. Like for me, some of the examples of dominance, right? I love that Savage just uses that keyword in that scene you're talking about, right? Where he's like, there's no need for dominance between us. Like, he sees where this is going, right?
Yeah.
And Maul immediately demands to follow those rules of a dominant leader and a submissive follower. And then with Maul and Pre Vizsla, they both give lip service to alliance. They both have lots of reason. They're aligned on a ton of goals.
Yeah.
And they give lip service to be like, we want the same things. Great. But then they immediately both are, telling their number twos that they are seeking to dominate the other,
Yeah.
In Maul's got that great line of, our combined strength will be rewarded, while he's actively choking Bo-Katan. That's not good faith alliance right there.
No, and even Pre's got to look at his face like he's like, all right, I'll wait it out. Well, she's dying, and he's just like, yeah, okay, keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. And then he says that there's only one plan, one vision, and it's not in this arc that Sidious and Maul requote that about Sidious's vision, but that comes back later, right? This obsession that there can be only one plan, one vision. And then it's fascinating to me the way Maul builds the Shadow Collective. Like, he maybe could have done a little bit of trading, or I will, what I mean? It's all built out of dominance, right? It's all threats of violence, or, in the case of beheading lots of people, actual violence, and then that tracks to, it ties together with Death Watch, right? Because Pre Vizsla and the Death Watch want Mandalore to be defined as warriors. That's their whole thing. And there's that part of being a warrior that can absolutely be honorable, right? But I don't feel like that's what the story of Death Watch is. It's the story of the Death Watch wants warrior to mean not like we defend ourselves. They want to have conflict so that they can win. And they want to be warriors in the way that they are defined as people whose value comes from the defeat and dominance of others. Like, Pre Vizsla says the name Mandalore should send fear into the hearts of these gangsters. It's not about when the people of Mandalore hear the name Death Watch, they should feel safe. It's other people should fear us, right? And he clings to that to the point of it's his last words of, like you said, only the strongest shall rule. He doesn't have, that death, that fight and that death is pointless, right? It's just in service to worshiping at the altar of dominance is everything.
Yeah, and it's the undoing of all these characters time and time again. Again, going back to Maul's inability to just simply share the load with Savage. It's this dark side dominates and destroys. Thirst for power, all part of his undoing in this arc and beyond. And this inability to change. Remember last week we talked about bluster versus confidence with old Meeber. Yes. We got a lot of bluster, and Death Watch is a lot of bluster. And we've talked before with the Satine stuff and them, the inability to change, grow, and adapt, and being afraid of the new normal, which makes them more fearful than they want to admit. And they project this aura of strength that is, has some truth to it just in their capabilities, but is false. And then they're beholden to this false idea of strength.
Yeah, because I do really feel like the threat is manufactured. The threat is them, right? It's a mini version of what Sidious's big Clone Wars plan is. And Pre Vizsla does express that, like, I want Mandalore, but I really do take it of he wants Mandalore to go out and be a conquering planet again. Not that he just wants to be like, we'll use our strength to defend Mandalore. How do you feel about that?
It says the name of Mandalore should send fear into the hearts of these gangsters. Yeah, he wants to restore this glory. I think even if Pre's like, nah, I just want kind of what we have here. Would he ever be satisfied with that? Would he ever just want to sit back, especially as the Empire comes about? No. So I think you're right. I think the greed would continue to drive him forward as well.
Yeah. And then I love that Sidious really does bookend this, as you said, not just literally bookending the conversation between Savage, where he's like, could we be equals? Could both of our names be above the title? And Maul's like, no. That Sidious is the one who installed this in Maul, right? And it comes to remind him that there is only one true plan, and it's Sidious's. He doesn't literally say it this time, but it's pretty clear. And that final image is just about dominance, right? That it's Maul on the ground, Sidious blasting him, and behind them there's that mural, great Cubist Picasso style that they introduced for Mandalore. It's a mural of Jedi in Mandalorians fighting, right? Like, so even the image behind them is about everything has to be about combat. Everything has to be about a winner and a loser.
Yeah. And that vicious cycle here.
Yeah. So for me, I think some of the attachment stuff that they dabble with Obi-Wan, I feel like Obi-Wan and Satine are the kind of the in Bo-Katan up to a point are the balance to this of choosing something else, right? They both kind of reject hate and anger. Obi-Wan tries to have empathy for Maul with I've been to your village and I know this wasn't your choice. And, Kenobi utterly rejects hate with his great line of, you can kill me, but you will never destroy me. It takes strength to resist the dark side. Only the weak embrace it. And even after all that she's been through trying to keep this this pacifist government that does defend itself going, and is, her death is this brutal, ugly thing. Satine's last words are about love, right? They're not about, could you kill this guy for me? There's nothing about it that's about, it's not even trying to win an argument of like, I was right. Your beard is not good. You should shave it. Like I'm kind of joking, but it is powerful that like in all this darkness and all this dominance and competition, her last words are just, love.
Yeah, you got Maul saying things like submit or suffer. He seeks fortune and power. Greed never fails to motivate, always truth. And Satine, there's great cost to her beliefs, right? And this is this idea that pops up in other properties too, like Marvel specifically, of what's a hero. It's the person who's brave enough to do what's right no matter the cost. And I think she has done that as best she can her entire life. Mistakes along the way. Again, you can have those discussions, go down to the base level of it. I love that. It's very telling that the final words are love. I think you're right.
Yeah, super powerful. So you listed some different ways that you were framing it. Is there any that you want to go deeper on?
We'll go into. So, what is your breaking point? Is obviously specific to maybe specific to the Kenobi stuff, but also, I don't know, that has to do with choices. Star Wars being about choices when you are dealt horrible hands. I think you're right. Maul was dealt a horrible hand as a kid, and given no choice. So Kenobi says you had no choice. The Night Sisters made that choice for you. So at some point, to me, he broke, and he's not willing to change. He's not willing to seek healing. It's easier said than done. This is never meant to be me saying quick answers to life here.
Right.
But he just never looks to heal at all. It had never to process. It is his journey is his cost of vengeance, a bad choice. So he's broken. Where Kenobi is here to stand tall, and he does what is right. He goes there, and you mentioned the cracked relationship between the Republic and the Jedi really showing here. He goes there because it's right, not because it's advantageous to any other personal goal. He goes there because it's right. So therefore, I think that a stronger foundation for him to be built on, and why he doesn't break.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that for me, the idea that you're tapping into that happens so many places in this arc is we see all these characters choose not only like their breaking point, but like who they follow and why. Right? Mm-hmm. A lot of what's happening is Maul and the Death Watch are putting pressure on people to do they break and go along with the big vision, right, of the leader. Mm-hmm. We see that right away with Maul, trying to turn Hondo's men against him, right? And then that works for a minute, but then they choose to go back to Hondo out of mercy because Hondo says, I'm not going to kill you. And look, we have a reason to be together. We're pirates. We plunder. We love it. Let's go plunder, right? So there's this, decision that there's so many instances where people do things out of fear. And then somebody else offers them something else, and they always go with the not fear option when they can, right?
Yeah.
And then Satine is it's a quick conversation, but I think it's really important that Satine, is clarifying her vision of leadership to Almec, and Almec's got that. He's no Sith Lord, but he's got the come on, everybody knows that nothing gets done without lying and cheating, and It's really your fault for having morals that I did bad things. Kind of argument
Yeah.
to Satine, and Satine says peace exists only in the minds of the faithful, the people made willing sacrifices for their freedom. This real vision that no, you got to be honest with people, and they have to choose to follow you because they truly have faith in you and your government. So she's making this great argument, of this is why I'm not going to break, because this is what I believe in, what leadership should be, and why people should choose to follow me. She's got this great example of who you follow and why.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah, wonderful example. I love that conversation with them too. It's pretty deep political philosophies there too. But you're right. No, a non-breaking point, an example of that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then obviously we see with Death Watch, their whole philosophy, like we've talked about, is ruling through lies and fears and the promise of power and the promise of restored glory that has been lost. We are the Death Watch, descendants of the true warrior faith all Mandalorians once knew. Our people were warriors, strong, feared. So obviously that's their whole thing. And they have they have warriors' honor, but they have no problem lying to the people, manipulating the people, killing people to get what they want. But then there becomes this interesting split in Death Watch, right? Where some of them feel honor bound to follow the victor of combat because that's their whole philosophy. And then for Bo-Katan, that's a breaking point. To your great point of right? No outsider will ever rule Mandalore. Like obviously Bo-Katan believed that her sister's pacifist thing wasn't a thing because she was with Death Watch and she did some awful things. And now she starts to change, where she starts to maybe through Maul, she starts to see what the Death Watch actually looks like, being able to see it from the outside via Maul. And obviously that's a strongly held conviction that no outsider will ever rule Mandalore. And it's really fun to hear that line now when we're heading to so much more who should rule Mandalore storytelling, right?
Yeah. Can a foundling, Bo? Do you think a foundling can do that?
What about a baby Yoda? Can a baby Yoda ever rule Mandalore? Yeah, for sure. And I thought it really that when do you break does really make sense for Kenobi and who do you follow and why, right? I think Obi-Wan breaks from following the Jedi in the Republic on this, possibly, at least partially, to help a friend who is calling for help and is in true trouble. But this isn't just my kind of girlfriend needs me, right?
Yeah,
this is an important planet. The detail in this arc that reminding you of not only are they a neutral planet, the 2,000 other neutral planets might listen to Mandalore and might, exert their power. They're the Mandalore is important to the galaxy, and Kenobi has been clear in his intuition that something is stirring in the underworld, that they've got to easy reign when we're busy with the war and bad things are happening, important things are happening. He makes that argument to the Jedi and the Republic, via Palpatine. So I feel like his going there is about Satine, but it's also about this is a real problem, and everybody else that I believe in is turning their back on it. So screw it, I'm going to pull an Anakin
and take his broken ship out there. Yeah, no, I love what you're saying there. I put down this note of, a simple note of just neutrality is keeping Mandalore from getting the help they need from the Republic in the situation. And these weird lines that are drawn, political lines, if you will, and how Kenobi just sees past that. Again, this idea of I got to be brave enough to do what is right. That spurs him on. There's this moment of rebellion that is in Obi-Wan. I don't even think is rebellion. I think it's just simply doing what is right. And I'm not pointing my finger back at Mason, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Yoda. It's just the situation they are in, the reality of what they got themselves into as the Jedi Order.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it is showing, the success of Maul's plan of if the Jedi don't know I'm involved, they will think it's an internal matter. And the Jedi philosophy is understandable on that of if a planet has a civil war, should we insert ourselves in that? Because it's them deciding their own direction. And should we go in and pick a side and basically be nation building? So that philosophy, not knowing that that Maul is involved is that's a great, you can see why the Jedi believe that, right?
Yeah.
But it's just all this manipulation and then all the red tape that's been built up in in the Republic. I love that Yoda's like, well, we should ask the Republic. And Obi-Wan's like, yeah, right. Yeah, sure. All right. Hear back from you in 2 years. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought the line was significant. It's set up as a just kind of a cool entry line. And when Kenobi's in his Mandalorian Death Watch armor disguise and he comes to Satine's cell, and she says something about you come here to do your master's bidding, and he takes off the helmet and says, I do my own bidding. It can just sound like, oh, that's a cool, great entry line. But it's also like, that's a pretty powerful statement for Obi-Wan about, I made this choice because I thought it was right. And normally I really follow all of the procedures and I don't do anything without, the approval of the Council and the Republic. But in this case, I'm making my own choice.
I absolutely love it. And I almost kick this back to you as a question, as a Kenobi fan as you are, as I am, and we are here at Force Center. I love these moments for Kenobi. I love all the moments with Satine. We talked a little bit on our Journey with Kenobi episode last week of this idea. When I learned I was like Anakin when I learned he had something with Satine, whatever it was, because he's the poster child. I just love everything about Kenobi in this moment. It makes him more real. It makes him more understandable at times, and I have so much more connection and empathy to him than I think I did before. I'm going back to 2013 now as well. I loved that it was him. Even if you're looking at it from the simple point of view, maybe you could say it was just simply for love. It's not. It's a lot more than that. It's like you're just discussing there. As a Kenobi fan, this is one of my favorite Kenobi moments. Him pulling off that mask and being like, "Hey, now I'm the one going outside of the order, so to speak, to be here." I loved it. It's a big victory for him.
Yeah,
even though it's a big defeat.
it is ultimately a defeat, but that obviously, I'm kind of joking saying he pulled in Anakin, but also like his master Qui-Gon did this from time to time too, of like, I believe in the Jedi, I believe in the Republic, I believe in democracy, I believe sometimes they make mistakes, and I need to follow, the spirit of who I am rather than get tied up in red tape. And normally Obi-Wan would say like, red tape sucks, but what are you going to do, guy?
Yeah.
So to see him make this choice of being like, this is a time where it's really wrong. There's no reason for me not to help her. And I think the Republic and the Jedi are wrong to not be doing anything about these out of control crime lords. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, look back when we know the whole story, we know the ending, but you're sitting there with Palpatine and he's like, that Maul guy's back? That can't be anything.
He's nothing. Yeah, like this. It's fun to imagine Sidious almost flipping, like, I'll take care of it. You know what I mean? Politically.
And then it's like Sidious is like his old work buddies show up, and he's like, God, I can't believe that guy's back. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Pete's good. He's good.
Yeah, Pete's fine. We'll take care of it. He's nothing to be afraid of. There was also for me this interesting theme of numbers. Obviously it's pointed out in that first moral about strength of numbers versus strength in characters, but it really tracks throughout it of, in the beginning, Maul is obsessed with having, numbers large enough to resist being hunted by the Jedi. There's multiple reminders of the rule of two. I think it comes into play when Maul is truly intrigued by Mandalore because it influences the 2000 neutral systems, and it's even the possibility of competing against the Republic and the Separatists. Everything is kind of, I think in a way it's tapping into that prequel theme that it's so important to Lucas, is about greed, about always wanting more, right? And all the conflicts that you end up in when that is your obsession.
There's a lot going on here, man.
It sure is.
Sorry, I'm not full. I just taking it in and just even going at one point doing my notes, and we roll up our sleeves and we try to be as best Star Wars pundits as we can. During the Lawless, I at one point just remember put down my keyboard. It was like, I just kind of want to watch this.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes that I rewatched. He's like, okay, I'm going to watch this once with kind of a critical eye, or what's my favorite action moment? He's like, now I'm just going to watch it again. Yeah, it's so good. Everything's good. One of kind of final just ideas in here that I like is we talked a lot about the dominance versus alliance, and there are these moments where people almost could have connected, right? It's there with Maul and Savage of could they have been brothers? Could they have been equals? And what would that have been like? Obviously, the revelation that Bo-Katan and Satine are siblings and they are realigning, but it's probably too late. That's heartbreaking. The Republic not functioning is heartbreaking. But for me, there's also this when Pre Vizsla is explaining to Maul what Death Watch is, and I think Maul is savvy enough that he hears, oh, I see what they want, and here's how I can manipulate them. Here's how we're aligned. He has to also hear that Pre Vizsla is basically describing Maul, right? Like that the story of Maul and Pre Vizsla or Maul and the Death Watch are, hey, once we were powerful and feared, that's what you should be. That's the goal in life, to be powerful and feared. Everything's about domination and we should be on top. But then we were rejected from our true place, Maul from the Sith, Pre Vizsla from Mandalore. We were kicked out, and now we are eager to reclaim our rightful spot as we should have always had. They're like, they could have actually like commiserated over some beers, and Maul kind of pretends that's what he's doing, but he's just like, I hear you are exactly like me, and I will use that to break you.
This is fascinating, and you're so right. That's a great breakdown of what they are and the relationship. And I have a weird real world example from my past that I won't go too far down into, but I had two friends who hated each other. And I remember telling both of them, you are each other. Like, why can't you see that you're both the same, good and bad? Like, but you both want to attack each other. So to your question, I wonder if they're both so blinded by their own, I don't even say arrogance, but just their own beings that they can't see it. And that if they could see it, maybe they would make better decisions or different decisions. Maybe they're going to be like, if Maul was like, hey, you're making some mistakes that ring true to me. You want to talk about this? Obviously it's not going to happen. Star Wars, the Sith, it's a different tale. This isn't a what if plot hole type of question for me, but I just think, I think they don't see it. And that makes it even more tragic that their losses and Pre's, and I'm not saying Pre's the best guy in the world, but his death was meaningless to your point. Of why they're fighting. That's a great question. Love to have Maul here to ask him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that Maul's just real casual. I don't think I wrote the line down, but to Savage, like, it's no problem. He believes in honor, so that'll get him.
Yeah.
He's a warrior who believes in honor. So like, that difference is a weak point from Maul's perspective.
I love it. That great line from Maul. If your noble flaw is a weakness shared by you and your Duchess, you should have chosen the dark side, Master Jedi. Like, again, this idea of constantly what is weakness, what is strength, and it comes up a lot in Star Wars, comes up a lot in Clone Wars, and it should. It's an important question. And honor, and what kind of honor? And it's just being like, they got honor. I can use that. That's great stuff. Bad stuff, but good stuff. Yeah.
So there's a lot of great stuff in these manipulations, these misconnections, but I think pulling it back to that big picture, I think that it's those kind of ideas that really make me feel like this is an essay on the dark side, right? If like, okay, I believe in being powerful and dominant. Now I need allies who also believe in being powerful and dominant. Can we see how that's eventually not going to be in a good alliance at some point? Because if the only thing that unites you is we both believe in being powerful and dominant, then it's the whole thing is that interaction between Maul and Savage are like, could we be brothers? No, because we share this philosophy that somebody always has to be the winner. So if you're in a relationship with somebody who always has to be the winner, eventually they're going to want to beat you at something.
This essay quote the essay thought you have. I love it. It's a pamphlet on why not to choose, why you shouldn't choose the Sith, why you shouldn't choose the dark side is what I'm trying to say. Like that. Yeah. So you've decided to be a Sith. Here's why you shouldn't. Because that's kind of where it ends up, and we know it's going. Even Sidious's barking out, there is no mercy. It's just real dark stuff, and you put that up against Kenobi not breaking. I know which side I would try to choose, even if it's difficult.
Yeah. And I love that through all of this, I had to look it up to be reminded that Pre Vizsla gets that scar from Count Dooku. So like,
yes.
He doesn't trust Maul. He knows that he plans to, betray Maul from the beginning, but it's like, how did this go for you last time, dude? Anyway.
Yeah.
How do you want to talk about how the big ideas related to the larger story morality of Star Wars?
Yeah. Go for it. There, a lot of mine just comes back to kind of what we were talking about around the Sith, and it's a big statement on that, and just Sith selling the wrong things as strength is a true Star Wars story. Lies, a Star Wars story, but also how it ends, and a lot of good Sith stuff here. This being the first time Sidious emerges in the flesh in the show, not hologram that you mentioned up top. That's pretty interesting. But Kenobi has this great quote to Sheev, the Sith are persistent, they will not die, saying this to the man who will not die, who will not let go. So, to the big Star Wars picture, some big comments on the Sith and the dark side.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can cut right from there to somehow Palpatine has returned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, just as we've tracked the story of the Clone Wars of, it starts with the Jedi sort of trying to see it as defense, right? We're trying to stop this Sith Lord Count Dooku, and he's launching attacks against the Republic planet. So let's defend. It's our responsibility to stop a Sith Lord. Got to fight in the Outer Rims. We can end this fast. It's now getting to season 4, and the Republic and the Jedi are invading Umbara and fighting with the Umbarans who don't want them there, and just this ongoing story of Sidious's plan of the dark side is closing in, and that the war is just kind of unraveling the Jedi, right? That Obi-Wan is expressing, like, the crime families are running wild, and just that Palpatine now has the Jedi and the Republic so tied up in good intentions and red tape that helping people is extremely difficult for the Jedi to do.
Yeah. No, well said on the slide of watching the slide of the Jedi this far into the Clone War,
Yeah, because the next arc coming up for the Jedi is not great for the Jedi.
It's not good.
No. The other big picture thing that was interesting to me is that we obviously had some Maul episodes before this, as he was brought back to life and to health and did a little bit of rampaging and fighting Kenobi. But this is where we really get into the Maul that we know of. Obviously full of hate and anger, but that slick voice and even a little bit of a kind of wry sarcasm. And I just find it really interesting that Maul is trying to be Palpatine, right? Like, he is trying to play a big chess game and maneuver around things. And there's some long-term planning, there's some manipulation, but he relies on brute force a lot, particularly to build his alliance. And I think that's why it doesn't work. And Palpatine's big plan to take over the galaxy, there's obviously some brute force and some dominance and all that, but his big picture plan works because he tricks people into handing over their power willingly. And the contrast between how Palpatine gets Anakin to hand over his power, gets the Jedi to kind of hand over some of their power during the Clone Wars, totally gets the government to hand him the power and just get citizens to cheer when it becomes the Empire. Picture that in contrast to Maul just being like, hey, Black Sun, I'm gonna cut your heads off. Now you're going to join me. Cool. Great. In that the brute force is not as successful as the slow manipulation and the long-term planning. Yeah,
which is it's not a comment on Maul's level of intelligence, so I kind of don't carry feels on that kind of stuff. Bad guy. But yeah, no, it's why Palpatine's a Phantom Menace of it all, right? It's the danger, and it's the bluster versus confidence. Unfortunately, she's real confident in his abilities, where Maul's over here dancing with this hole in his soul, this vengeance. And you said we're getting back to the position that he lost, and then of course he clearly blames Kenobi for all that, but even before that blames the Jedi that he was even in there. Yeah, it's just a different kind of approach, and one is certainly more dangerous than Star Wars, I think, is commenting on that here. Why Palpatine it's almost like two gnats he has to wipe away off the window that's blocking his view, and he has to go handle this, and he's in full control, unfortunately, for the galaxy.
Yeah, and I think it's thrilling and horrible, but I think there is this, like, I'm slowly pulling the strings. And this is a problem where he's like, you know what? I think a quick application of just brute force, I think that's what's called for here. It just, obviously he's evil. And I enjoy him as an evil character, but just like the thrill of like, I just been quietly pulling strings for a while, and this is the one time I can just kick ass. Let's go. Let's do it. Get me a ship, Masamita.
Masamita, I'm getting kind of bored. Can you give me a ship? Yeah.
Any other big picture thoughts before we take our break?
No, so much there. That's not just us saying that. It's just these episodes are so deep. I love them. Love celebrating. More to come.
Yeah, we could just do an entire episode about all the Mandalore ramifications. We'll talk about it a little bit in canon, but that's so huge too, with the big chunk of the story of Mandalore in these arcs. But for now, we're going to take a break, and we are going to be back to discuss some of our favorite action moments, comedy moments, canon moments, all kind of stuff like that in just a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of the great Season 5 Clone Wars arc, Maul Takes Mandalore. For a moment, I guess. Maul takes and loses Mandalore. Kind of. Anyway, let's get into some of our favorite moments, Ken. Obviously, there's so much action in this arc. Big set-piece scene after set-piece scene. What were some of your favorite moments within these big set pieces?
Man, there's so many. I'm going back to the first episode, Revival, and it truly does seem like a different, not arc, but different time. Hondo, who has some sort of sense of maybe the moral high ground here, he's uniting his people in one shared goal. But Kenobi versus Maul, I always highlight this one. They cross blades here. And I think it's forgotten in the bigger picture of the Star Wars story. They do it, later in the story, but this is kind of the first time. And then you got Savage brutally killing Adi Gallia. I love that whole sequence, and it's a reminder of just these 4 episodes are so big and bold that this kind of mini rematch is just a warm up act, and it's a great little fight.
Yeah, no, it is great, that first encounter, even before they're trapped in Hondo's lair there. Savage's head stab of Adi Gallia, right? To just we definitely see Jedi die, like the Jedi, I'm gonna die. But Adi Gallia is this great canon thing of, hey, where did she go? Where does Stas Ali come in? So that was fun. But we spent a little bit of time with the character, so you have some emotional investment in, that kind of Star Wars character of like, hey, I remember her action figure coming out. Hey, I remember, I think, getting to play her in video games in the year 2000. So for me, she has a little bit of weight, and the savage head stab with the horns of like, these aren't just ornamental. This is a really dangerous headbutt. And then obviously finishes her off with the lightsaber, but it's brutal.
It really is. It really is. And we had the episode recently on Star Wars talking about when Star Wars gets edgy. We could just point to this like Leo DiCaprio in a meme. There's edgy. a lot of it edgy. I know that edgy.
Yep. There's the edgy. That's where Adi Gallia dies. It's rough. Yeah, and then going forward to that fight that they have in the ruins of Hondo's base, I always think of this one, and I sometimes like, where does that fall in all of this? So it's great to reconnect to it, but I've always loved this one because this is such a great example of Kenobi as, a great fighter, but also clever and sly, and being the one who's like, you all think you're fighting this kind of battle, but I'm fighting this battle. And, he's definitely trying to take it to him. He's definitely in it. But that leg kick to Savage of being like, you are not seeing what I'm obviously doing, which is kicking you and kicking you and kicking you in the same place that I believe Adi Gallia already kicked you.
Yeah. Tried
to break you down. He just, the fighting smart and fighting sly is so great. And then that, obviously it is edgy, but just the smoking ruin of Savage's arm, where you see the bone, like it's like a cartoon character dreaming of ham. It's like, it's so gross.
Such a good reference. Deep Hanna-Barbera cut. Yeah. That knee kick is brutal, and then Kenobi taking off a limb. Add that to his resume. Yeah. But great stuff there. Great stuff. Yeah. I love the smoke and green thing. You forget that that's kind of what those characters are built on. The Maul and Savage angle of it all. Love that stuff.
Yeah, that Night Sister Icker billowing out. It's really, really gross and weird. I love it. What are some other action moments for you going forward?
Jumping to the second episode of the arc here. I mean, we got to highlight, and I was doing some of the trivia gallery research too of there is a more brutal version out there that I have not really seen. I don't own the DVDs, but Savage's multiple head chop of the Black Sun.
Yes.
It's one of those moments. Again, we talk about when Star Wars is edgy and what people mean by that, and blah blah blah. And we want a little bit of silliness, and there's some great comedy all through these episodes too. I will point out, but I don't know, man. That's just one of those like. And then you press the X button twice. This happens, and you fist pump. It was and no love lost on the brutal Black Sun guys, anyways. But yeah, that was a big moment.
That one's so great. There are a lot of moments in the middle of the arc where once Maul has established the, master apprentice dominance relationship, like one of the ways he shows it is he doesn't, break a sweat doing things. He lets Savage do it. Right. There's a bunch of moments where he's like, Savage, will you, so I love that Maul's like, okay, do it. And he ducks down.
Yeah.
And then ducks back up after their heads are gone. It's so great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's truly, Savage is the brute squad that Maul brings out here.
Yeah. And I think for me, some of it that is, enjoyable from a storytelling point of view of the action is the Sith and characters like Maul and Savage are built up to be terrifying and powerful. And sometimes you're watching and being like, why don't they just do this? And I like the moments where like they cut loose with their full power, right? Of like, yeah, these Black Sun guys, they can't step to Savage, Yeah. And I think just that kind of that action that supports what the character is really cool.
And the edgy coolness of it all. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then for me, I'm moving into that third episode, that whole bounty hunters versus Mandalorians versus Savage Maul. There's a million little moments in there that are great, and but my love of Embo, so I love it when Embo and Savage are fighting, and Embo is he uses his hat a lot of different ways, but he's using it as a shield as Savage is just punching away. And I love that nice. I love that Marek the Anuba, attacks Maul. But I love that nice end beat of their escaping, and Marek's like, "Ooh, got to pick up Embo's hat."
It's so cute. It's almost a TikTok pet video quality there. Pick up Dad's hat.
Yeah, are you a Kyozo bounty hunter? Has your Anuba picked up your hat? Yeah, it's happened to us all. What are some? I don't want to rush you past the second episode if you got more there, but
no. It seemed to be more. Yeah, the third episode. Embo popping up was great, and not that again, it's one of those things where I didn't forget it, but then you just kind of, especially with this new eye, it all pops up. I know your excitement for Embo all the time, but just that whole crew, which you got to spend time with. And I even like them kind of run away, and Maul's just like, nah, they're bounty hunters. Don't worry about them. But it's a real fun, crazy sequence. I even like Sugi's knife throw that doesn't quite go anywhere because the Force stops it.
Yeah. That's a great beat.
Yeah, it's a great little beat. And I dare say, it's a fun little team. I'm not saying I want to spin off with them, but it's fun to see them.
It's a best of Clone Wars bounty hunters, or I guess some people would debate that. It's a really interesting team up of bounty hunters.
Right.
Yeah. Any other beats in that big bounty hunter fight?
No. I was going to highlight the hat by Embo's pooch there, so to speak. But I love it.
So I think from there I'll go to the fight that made the largest impact on me as a fan in some ways, because I keep talking about just being shocked that it was there and it was that cool. The Maul pre-Vizsla fight, man, that whole thing is amazing. But I think what I really like about it is there's great speed. It's really punishing. You really feel it. There's a lot of variety in all the different ways that Pre-Vizsla kind of tries to attack Maul. But I think I really love that Maul is like, yeah, and I'm going to beat you without using the Force. The only way he ever uses the Force is to call the lightsaber to his hand, right? Other than that, he's like, I'm going to beat you with the Force tied behind my back.
Yeah, you're right, because it does go, it gets to the fisticuffs. It gets to a lot of those physical actions. I do like that a lot. It's a great fight, especially, you look at the season 7 fight with Ahsoka and Maul with the kind of newer technologies, a little bit more performance capture. This really sets that up. They still have a little ways to go with technology, but it's season 5 had their new technology was in. These was the new designs for Palpatine, new design for Yoda to best bring in the new technology for the animation. So lots going on here. And this in its own way is a beautiful fight, as brutal as it is.
Yeah. I think, if I had to pick out one little moment, I do really like, I like the little blades cutting Maul's face. uh,
Yeah.
and kind of laughing at it. And I love the elbow exchange. I think Pre Vizsla elbows him relatively early, and then at another point Maul blocks it. Like, I'm onto that now. And then,
Yeah.
and then Maul elbows him. There's great stuff going on. There's a lot of storytelling in the fight.
A lot of storytelling. I also just love seeing Pre use kind of the old anti-Jedi tricks from Mandalore's history in his last fight with Maul. You kind of see the why they held their own in that fight, even though they may eventually have lost. And this goes to stuff later on with Canon and Sabine and all that stuff of her trying to scrimmage with him. So I just like seeing that on display.
Yeah, he's just got overwhelms Maul with all these different weapons. You never know what's coming out next, and kind of switches back from sort of the jetpack Mando from above attack to the down in his face with the Darksaber. Great stuff. What are some other moments for you?
Is it in that fight? Remind me. I put it in my notes in the third episode, but now I'm doubting where it was. There's a great shot where Maul ignites his lightsaber, not the Darksaber, but the red blade, and he ignites it with a roar. And it's also with the sound effect is everything. It's a great little beat, and just the anger just kind of coursing through his veins and coming out in that moment. I really like that little beat.
Yeah. There's a lot of great beats, a lot of great shots, though. The way everything is structured with Maul cutting Pre Vizsla's head off. I paused it and tried to find his head, but I think...
Yeah, and I think again too. There's apparently I've never owned those DVDs. Sorry if everyone's, I guess, is common knowledge, but I guess there is a version with his head rolling.
Okay,
like it would.
Yeah, no, I mean I understand trying to find the balance of what this show is. It's a great interview I saw. Just randomly saw YouTube offered it to me of I think it's a Conan O'Brien show, in a live big theater with Lucas. Lucas is promoting the Clone Wars, and Conan O'Brien's kind of joking around with him. Is like, so it's kind of for kids, and Lucas is like, yeah, it's definitely it's definitely helping kids grow up and learn things. And he's like, yeah, but then there's a lot of violence. And then Lucas is like, I don't know, we'll see. And it's like, there from the maker. That's the tension of the Clone Wars, and it was definitely here. But it kind of cracked me up because I totally understand trying to keep it safe for kids. It's already brutal. There's already teeth flying. But if you pause right after the chop and you see his headless body, and it's like, did his head roll under the sofa? Where'd it go?
Yeah, no, look, I think even we'll discuss, I'm sure, Satine's death, obviously, but there's something to be said about artistically showing some of that violence. It's even more effective for me.
Absolutely. I think in the final episode, there's so much great Mandalorian fighting, but I really liked Bo-Katan's leg work when she's rescuing Kenobi. She knees the one guy, she chokes another in the crook of her leg. It's all cool, and then it attaches rockets and rope, and it's all good. But I really like her leg work.
Oh, yeah, she's got some MMA fighting skills indeed. That behind-the-knee chokehold was pretty darn cool. I'm not trying to put any pressure on Katie or a stunt performer, but wouldn't mind seeing stuff like that in Mandalorian Season 3 if she's going to be there.
Ooh, yeah, I would really like that too. Absolutely. Any moments, other moments for you?
I wanted to, this is one of the weird ones, but the crash of the Twilight is pretty cinematic and action-filled. We talk about a lot of ships landing and flying. This was a ship crashing, a beloved ship with Anakin, with a great Anakin as a young pod racer decal in it now. I love that little detail. But the crash of the Twilight, man, it was intense.
Yeah, no, a huge explosion, knocking Kenobi flat. I love the debris kind of landed on Satine, and Kenobi using the last of his strength to push it away. It is very much like, hey, kids, do you remember this ship? It's gone now.
Yeah.
It's really gone. It's last thing for me is, of course, Sidious's massive assault, and that is just it's just kind of a jaw-dropping moment to me, and I think it is one of those, again, I have that emotional relationship to it, because I feel like if some of the fans my age who are grumpy about the prequels, could see that, they would be so into it. And obviously people who grew up with the prequels loved it too. It's just such a rare moment, and it feels so earned because it does tie into, we're close to wrapping up Palpatine's plot, and you get that sense, right? It's the bookend. It delivers the theme. It's not just there to be cool, but it absolutely bookends. Like, hey, Maul, you chose a life of just domination, just apprentice or the master. We're here, your master's back, and he's going to show you what real domination is. It's the tragedy of Savage Opress. So there's so much going on in it, but it's also just like, yeah, it's so cool and great to see unstoppable Darth Sidious Sheev Palpatine just cut loose.
Well, I even put one of my favorite action moments is his arrival.
Right?
Just going down that ramp, which, by the way, is a Return of the Jedi kid. To see that it's like a different walk down the ramp there.
The camera kind of tilting and his theme banging.
It's a little pro wrestling moment, indeed. He's entering the ring here, and a lot of little beats in there that he does. I love the double window smash, which is also when he's like talking about your arrival. Just to see his. Talk about the prequel era and everything like that. This is all very purposeful. You're right. There's so much theme going on in these moments. But yeah, as a prequel era fan, struggling to come to terms with those movies, I do love, are you threatening me, Master Jedi, when they go to arrest him and all, the corkscrew of doom that he has there. It just was a lot of fun to see this on display in a way. You and I always talk about the tension of loving Palpatine, but not rooting for Palpatine. I do think we need these moments of villainy. Even the newsreel has a line about villainy swells. Well, here's the big tidal wave of villainy. So it was really effective and a great as a Star Wars fan to watch then and now.
Yeah, and just really dynamic, really well done. And the backwards double lightsaber stab of Savage Opress is both cool and brutal. And it's sad. And Savage Opress is a tragic character, and it does make sense that Sidious would just take him out because he doesn't need him. He needs Maul. But also just like the move of that, it feels like you earned, a bunch of points in a video game and you get to do your real showboating move. Like,
yes,
it feels like, it feels like Sidious is like, he could have a Batman monologue of like, from this position, there are 7 different ways for me to kill Savage Opress. I'm going to go with the fancy showboating one, like double blade behind my back.
Well, he's cackling. He also had blocked from behind his back a little beat before that. And then the kill. It's like, what? And even there's a moment prior to that where there's a sigh from Sheev. I don't know how to read it. Like, it was real great. It was kind of like also like, this is great, or I still have to get it. It was a lot going on with Sheev. Good old Sidious in these moments.
Yeah, so great, so great. Any other action moments for you?
I was trying to think. I did mark down. You mentioned in your summary actually about the Savage and Maul escape from prison easily. It's because Savage breaks him out with a window-shattering force surge, which is almost like you talked about very well about. Hey, we're bringing Savage out. We're not pressing the X button until we need to. You also look over and be like, were you just wait? Could you have done that the whole time? Like, why are we even waiting in here? Just waiting for the conversation to finish? Like, it was
yeah,
so
I mean,
great.
I guess the other big theme of this arc is the Mandalorian prison is useless. The only person it can contain is Olmec, and not even him ultimately. He talks his way out of it. But yeah, no, I love that. Just like that's cute. You locked us up, and like the hurling that Mandalorian guard. Yeah. Great,
so
great stuff. From hurling Mandalorian guards, we'll move on to moments of comedy, whimsy, weirdness. For a really dark arc with a lot of tragedy, there is a ton of comedy in this. Where did you go?
First of all, we got a warning. Ton of Hondo quotes probably coming. There's some great Hondo stuff. But even before that, I love. There's a little bit when they go to that space station and looking for the credits and everything. Savage is just stomping and tossing everything around the space station like an upset kid. It was just something I love. Like, did you need to do that? I don't know, but he's so angry. I love that. And then so much comedy with the warehouse supervisor, who is also the best Coen brothers character, not in one of their movies. So many great, just that draw, all done by the 2 crabbiest Zebrix, this out of the Hattie. It's just so much fun stuff with it.
That's such a great call. Yeah, I just rewatched Barton Fink recently. Yeah, that warehouse owner is well played, but definitely could be a John Goodman character. The line that I would try not to write them all down, but I love that. Do me a favor, spark up that lightsaber, would you?
It's so awesome. It's so weird in a wonderful way. And I think it's so, looking back at the Clone Wars, and there's some weird choices of voices in the movies. This we know, some deserve to be talked about on a little more serious level, but there's also some wild choices. I think on my first go around the Clone Wars, I wasn't always on board with a lot of the weird, wild choices, which might have fed into some of my Meeber Gascon dislike eons ago. This character, I don't know if I loved this character back in the day, because what is it? But now, just like I can hear that line over and over and over again. Do me if I ever spark up that lightsaber. Like, what? So funny.
It just, the overall vibe between the animation and the voice comes off of just like, I'm just trying to get through my day, and my droids are gone. They took my money. Was it Jedi? What's the deal? Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do like it's a very straightforward joke, but I liked it acknowledging the truth of Adigalia saying, "You know this Hondo personally," and Kenobi saying, "Unfortunately, yes."
Yes.
And then there's a lot of great Hondo. So unless you got anything else, let's go to Hondo Town.
No, it's time for Hondo.
Yeah. So what do you got for Hondo?
Just even from the beginning, just the line "traitor scum." I'm so proud. Just always the through line there with Hondo, which explains too why he would be like, "Let's stop fighting." You guys, I'm proud of your decision. It didn't work out. Come back to my side.
Yeah, come back to my side. I loved all his outrage, but who are these horny-headed maniacs? That line shouldn't work, but it does because the acting is so good. Who are these horny-headed maniacs?
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, greetings. What kind of menace have you brought to my planet now? Just the banter between him and Kenobi is always great.
I loved his Quakian monkey lizard. It goes back and forth. This one is Pilf. I looked up Pilf Muck Muck. But I love just that great animation joke of Pilf Muck Muck pawing through Kenobi's hologram.
Yes,
it's just so like that's what what a cat would do. Like, is this guy here? Yeah. I also loved that great moment of kind of segueing from tragedy to comedy when Kenobi tells him that Adigalia has died, and Hondo's like, "They are too powerful even for you. I am semi-speechless."
I put that down too because it's done in such a way, and Hondo's such a great character. I don't feel it undercuts the death. We get to live in that moment. Kenobi gets to live in that moment, but then the story picks right back up with that line, and I do like that.
Yeah, it's just a great transition of like Hondo is actually affected by it,
Yeah,
and it does show the growth of their relationship a little bit of like he does, consider Kenobi a force to be reckoned with,
Absolutely.
I think I got one more Hondo line. We might have the same one. So what else do you have for Hondo?
Is it a line that also is a subtle Pirates of the Caribbean reference? It's
not that I'm aware of. So please,
it's the insolence line. The insolence.
Oh yes,
we are pirates. We don't even know what that means. Apparently, I wouldn't have picked it up because it's a great line, but it's a little callback to Pirates of the Caribbean and Barbossa not admitting to not speaking all the words, not understanding all the words being spoke to him. I don't understand.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's such a great line.
Yeah, because there's also one of remember we were reading in some of the notes. Keira Knightley's character is in one of the designs too for some of the characters. It's a weird obsession with Pirates, the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It's hilarious.
It was very popular when it came out. It shocked everybody by being good.
Yeah, good.
Because there's all that like, oh, they're making a movie of a ride. Like, wait, that was fun. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm sure there are many different strong opinions about it these days, but that was what I experienced at the time. I really, really loved Kenobi having a line that like, oh, that's a great line because it acknowledges it, and it's kind of funny of Hondo being like, I'm sure they died in the crash, and Kenobi's like, oh, I cut one of them in half once, and he survived. And then Hondo being totally disinterested and saying, well, isn't that interesting? It's such a great subversion because it is actually extremely interesting that one of them survived being cut in half. And the fact that Hondo's like, I'm on to other things. I'm barely listening to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that story, Kenobi. Like, it's so funny.
Yeah, and I think my first go around, I think I really underappreciated and undervalued Hondo. But I'm here for the Hondo party now. Yeah,
the Hondo's comedy is great. The lines are great. It's next level actor delivery to really make the comedy pop. The comedy savvy performer.
Yeah.
But also just it's fun to see his arc all holds together really well. We talked about it a lot with the Gathering arc. So moving on from Hondo to those other 3 episodes, I don't have as much.
No.
But what do you got?
I think Maul's line to the hut that he kills is really great. So the only thing that you can tell me is that I will find Jabba at Jabba's palace. It's a really fun moment. Maul's got some humor.
That I haven't been tracking enough, but if we were going to do a ranked best comedy lines in Clone Wars, that one would be up there for me. Because, there's a lot where Maul is kind of wry and villainous, but that's just directly hilarious, and you don't quite hear it coming, and it's even funnier for surprising you. Yeah,
absolutely.
You mentioned this line already. I wrote it down as a joke one because every once in a while the narrator cracks me up of starting one of the recaps with "Villainy swells."
That's a great line. Almost a t-shirt.
Sounds like a medical condition, right?
Totally.
The welcome to Mandalore droid with the smiley face that gets shot in the smiley face, tragic but funny.
Yeah, I like that.
What else you got?
When they go to Jabba's palace, there's a great little, when all the criminal in the world shows up there, they're fighting. I put comedy with a question mark, but that Gamorrean guard slowly, and I mean slowly, stomping toward a Death Watch member with his axe held high, and he gets killed. It's hilarious, but it's also hilarious to then see the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett Gamorrean guards and the different takes on the Gamorrean guards over the years, and how this take in this episode, you got those 2 kind of sleeping at the front door, and they're all so slow, and they're very big and bulky. This is like the Kenner toy version of the Gamorrean guards.
Yep.
So love that.
Yeah, I feel like after this, maybe the Gamorrean guards got a talking to of like we need to re-up our training regimen.
Yeah, but there's a tragic moment for this Gamorrean guard, but very slow, very funny.
A slow, funny moment of tragedy. Last one for me is I did like the Obi-Wan comedy of the Twilight just sputtering and sparking, and Obi-Wan saying, "Oh, Anakin, that's the last time I borrow a ship from you." It's a funny line. It's a very Obi-Wan line, grumpy, but also just like makes it really clear. Like, yep, no, Obi-Wan went to Anakin and said, "Hey, I'm doing something. Maybe I shouldn't. Don't worry about it. Can I take your ship?"
Yeah. I'd like to see that follow-up conversation.
Yep. And then it doesn't make it back. Anything else, or should we move on to canon?
Only one other thing. I wouldn't say this is intentionally done for comedy, and it's done in the spirit of what's going on, the plan that they're putting out, where the Death Watch is, quote, saving the day. I love when they open the storage container, and the guy's like, "You have my thanks, soldier." And he goes, "We're Death Watch. We're here to rescue you." And then he goes, "You have my thanks, soldier." He goes, "No, thank Pre Vizsla." It's so comic book cheesy. Like, why would that guard fall for it? But of course he would. He just got saved. I just really love that moment. It was really well done.
Yeah, there's that one moment where Savage kind of like after he's been fake defeated has that kind of little half smile of like, the idiots are falling for it.
It's great.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So there is a ton going on in our section where we talk about canon, lore, connections to other stories. But I wanted to start with In Memoriam because there are just so many kind of named characters that die, right? Adigalia, Aruba the Hutt, Pre Vizsla, big character. The Spice Freighter Twilight they were talking about, Duchess Satine, Savage Opress. These are, characters who have made a mark in the prequel era, in the Clone Wars. Some of them larger than others. Obviously, Aruba the Hutt is, there's a kind of role. Everybody has a Star Wars tattoo of someone, so maybe there's an Aruba the Hutt tattoo out there. But how do you feel about just the number of deaths? Does it feel like we're wrapping this era up and there's these characters who don't make it and we're entering that phase of this storytelling?
Yeah, I think, and I don't think it's certainly not a checklist, right? But they're aware of that stuff. They're aware of the time period they're playing. And even remember, we as fans still had some of these questions. The big question hanging overhead was Ahsoka, right? And we're going to get that answer soon. But even like Adigalia is a great Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace kind of trivia question of the difference there with Stas Ali. So there's that stuff. But I do do like it in the sense of they knew they had to do something with these characters. They knew they had to kind of clear the decks, but they do it in such a powerful and poignant way. Just, storytellers and creators knowing what they're doing and being confident in what they're doing, and perhaps confident all along. And we know what these characters in this story mean. And we know the questions you have about their fate, and it all pays off in some really powerful moments. I mean, just the Satine death alone is just heart-wrenching, and it's epic, and it's so cinematic. And just to get that from this show that was kind of playing with this uncharted area of the story, I think it's all great.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, she doesn't have that much screen time, right? We have the arc where we meet her. We have the arc where Olmec is causing all sorts of problems on Mandalore, and she interacts with both Padme and Ahsoka. Great stuff. Then we have this arc. Then we have lots of little moments where she is in the background. The horrible tragedy when Obi-Wan faked his death and she's at the funeral.
Right.
And I really want to have ever heard that follow-up conversation where Obi-Wan has a holocaller. It's like, so I made some choices.
Yeah.
And how she feels about that. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not a ton of time, but such an influence, right? I mean, there are fans who are so invested in the relationship, the romance. There are weddings that have been affiliated or not affiliated. Saying of the weddings have been conducted by the actors who played Obi-Wan and Satine. Like, it's this character and her relationship with Obi-Wan made a big impact.
Absolutely did, and with good reason. Such a good character, such a powerful character. But again, it's this big character, even with small screen time, like you said, a big character in this time period. So it's like those questions of, well, what happened and where, and this payoff. It's really impactful, really impactful.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, obviously her relationship with Kenobi, it tells us a lot about Kenobi, but herself as a character. I love that she is fascinating, even if she didn't have a relationship with Kenobi, right?
Correct.
That she is in that vein of Padme and other queens of Naboo and other rulers that we've met in books and comics, of who is really trying to do the right thing, trying to find a means of government that is noble and walking this incredibly difficult path. And to see that this character is, I think almost always coded as correct, making the correct choice, right? And her death is falling. Obviously, it's Maul and his vengeance, but it is also Death Watch. Just not being willing to give the idea of pacifism a chance,
Yeah.
And it's so important that she has that conversation with Olmec to be like, this noble road is really difficult, but we have to take it. And she doesn't, ever veer away from it.
Yeah, no, it's part of the tragic nature of the Clone War itself. But yeah, you give Satine and Padme, Mon Mothma, give them the keys to the castle. Galaxy would have turned out a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Any other deaths or in the case of Twilight destructions that you wanted to focus on?
No. But rest in peace, Savage Opress, the name that oddly enough still is not high on my list of favorite Star Wars names, but yet just is it is what it is, and accepted. And again, a tragic life indeed.
Yeah, a name that bold, having that much tragedy is it's a special time in the Clone Wars. Yep. So I liked early on that a lot of citizens of the galaxy were very confused, thinking Maul and Opress are Jedi with red blades, right? We get that from the warehouse owner. We get some clarity from Hondo. Other people do know once they're told Sith, but I thought that was interesting that, like, this is this era where people are well aware of Jedi. And they're like, hey, I saw some Jedi with red blades. And the Jedi are like, no, not Jedi. How did you feel about this ignorance of the Sith?
No, I love it. It's a detail that you need there. And this is what, as much as we want the themes and the stories, we love these little canon details. And I know one of my favorites is still the fact that Wedge wasn't at Scarif, but yet he was on the VO, and it's like he had a day off, he wasn't flying that day, and they know they need to, and we Star Wars fans love that stuff. So even that detail alone, but also just speaks to this state of the galaxy and this true, unseen menace that it's never went away, but is now slowly emerging. I love that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see baby. Well, he wouldn't have even been alive yet, I don't think. But you can see Beaumont Kin being like, these people were real, and not many people study them.
Yeah, not people know. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also wanted to note that team of bounty hunters that the Hutts had hired. We got Embo, we got young Dengar, Lats Razzie, and Sugi, who pops up a couple places but is introduced in the great episode Bounty Hunters, riffing on Seven Samurai. How did you feel about that collection of bounty hunters?
It's wonderfully random to show up there and they're hiding and they're waiting and Jabba's got them on retainer, I would think. And then they get their butts kicked and they run away. It's so Clone Wars. You talk. It's like a homage to the stories that have come on the Clone Wars, the bounty hunter stuff. They're all those characters, even young Dengar, are so Clone Wars cartoon. So I love them kind of showing up and having their place in this big story.
Yeah, and I like the that you can absolutely infer, like, yeah, the Hutts are very aware that Maul's coming.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of, like, anytime they have a council meeting, they've got bounty hunters tucked under the desk.
Exactly. Just waiting.
Just crouch down there. It's cool. Hondo discusses in episode 1 the events of the Gathering arc, that there's now separatist control of Florum, that the Jedi failed to stop that from happening, that Grievous destroyed Hondo's fleet and base, which is great when you watch these in chronology. Yeah. Extremely confusing when you watch them in broadcast order. Yeah. This is one of the last moments of kind of really confusing if you watch it in broadcast order. How do you feel about that?
I was reading some notes on this too, and that how George and Dave both felt the revival was the great way to start season 5, and I don't disagree with that at all, especially where this whole series and season ends up. So I think it's great. But yeah, David meant there's a line of, because if we had more time, we would have fixed the other episodes. It just would have been more in a line. Whether or not that means the other 3 go before their other stories, but they would have taken care of that. So they were aware. But hey, that's kind of a Star Wars / George trait, right? Yeah, there's going to be some conflict, but for the better, for the story, for the sake of the story, is what we're going to do here. And so I kind of respect that.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating insight that they want to start the season with a bang, right?
Yeah, it's a great one. It's a great one there. Yeah, and obviously popped up a few times in Clone Wars. This is why we're having a lot of fun doing the chronological rewatch. But this one, yeah, it does stand out, especially with the little details of the base and everything of Hondo's base.
Yeah, being destroyed and him referencing it, and yeah.
Well, and Adi Gallia is alive.
Right. Yeah, no, and there's just so much various Hondo interactions, like if Anakin going to get to buy the stuff off of him for the Onderon arc, and yeah. Mm-hmm. There is, of course, if you're a big Clone Wars fan, this kind of infamous line in the first episode as well, where Ian Abercrombie is voicing Palpatine, and then there's the one line from Tim Curry. Of course, we know that Ian Abercrombie tragically passed on. The final episode in the arc, The Lawless, has the in memory of Ian Abercrombie. He's absolutely great, but we do have they're just petty crooks from Tim Curry. Did you hear that when you watched it the first time, or is that something that, like, once you knew about it, you listened for it?
It's only once I knew about it. Also, back in 2013, I didn't have headphones on when I was watching it, but had headphones on, and it literally sounds like someone you recorded on an iPhone. It's totally different. Curry ends up, doing a great job in the time that he had the character before Whitworth comes and everything. So these are two talented performers, but it in headphones, it was jarring.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, it was definitely like you or I needed to drop in a line in the podcast, and we just got some other person with a vaguely similar voice. Like, it's very different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, but all props to Ian Abercrombie. Amazing job as Palpatine, and lots of other great performances across the years. This arc is Black Sun's premiere in what is, now current modern screen canon. Obviously, they made a big splash with Shadows of the Empire, Black Sun, in the Feline. How did you feel about seeing them?
Do you want my answer now or 2013?
I assume 2013 there was some negativity.
There was a big God no from me. Look, I have a complicated relationship with the EU, and I don't mean disrespect to anyone, and Shadows of the Empire was big, and I played the game too, but no Prince Xizor. I didn't know. No, I just rejected it flatly. Chop all their heads off. Now I get it. It's fun. And there's so many more things to worry about in Star Wars and life. So no cantankerous feelings about them now.
Yeah. A similar journey for me, so we'll leave it there. I had forgot that not only does Corky show up, but showing the passage of time, we have what people today would say glow up Corky. The cheekbones and that jawline's coming in, and it's a damn Corky moment from when I saw him. Yeah. How do you feel about glow up Corky?
I love it. Well, that and his friends too, right? They're all from that episode, right? And then they all have that shot of it's like watching season 4 of Stranger Things versus season 1, right? They all have the moment. They're like, hey, it's great.
Yeah, some of those images just came out today as we're recording of the Stranger Things things, who are now 36, it looks like, It's so funny. I loved Corky coming back. It was absolutely great. There are a couple lines. We tracked these because the Clone Wars show started out with lots of quoting of existing lines, and then that dropped off quite a bit, but there were a few in here. Maul has his, I sense a presence I haven't felt since Master. When Palpatine is coming, which is, of course, similar to Vader sensing Kenobi in A New Hope. And then Obi-Wan has the line to Bo-Katan, "You're Satine's sister, aren't you? I'm so sorry," which has a very, very similar vibe to me of Anakin is the father, isn't he? In Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's just like a thing that Obi-Wan does is like, and it's the joke of Columbo's like, one more thing that like sometimes this is just how Obi-Wan leaves the room. Like, I sense one of the most heartbreaking truths about your life, and I just throw it over my shoulder as I leave.
Yeah. Not much more I can say. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. But an effective and powerful moment. Were you okay with those callbacks? Did you feel like, did you like those better than, somebody saying I've got a bad feeling about this again?
And I enjoy that as well. No, I really liked them. The Maul one was interesting to me because it's so direct. It's so there. The other one's a great Kenobi moment. You're right to point that out. But the other one is just like, you can't help but think of it. And there's a little poetry, though it's not Vader sensing his Sith master, of course, but just the relationship to those that train you, those that guide you, your mentors, the connections, and what that means, and what that the fear can bring, and the who knows, anger, anxiety, all the thoughts through Vader's head during that time. So I actually really loved the use of it. It was really effective.
Yeah, and that heartbreaking master, like the fear and the desire to return and the hatred, like it's just it's really well done. So in this arc and many others, but it just really occurred to me, Mandalorians blast one another right and left. Do you have headcanon or concern about, the fact that Din Djarin and Boba Fett's armor, their Beskar, seems to withstand more blaster fire than a lot of Mandalorians in these shows?
I just Mandos know where to shoot Mandos. No one gets under your skin like if someone you know so well or love so much. I think maybe it's that little things there, little things that again. But hey, for the service of the story, more than the canon is something we hear a lot, and even Favreau talking about it. You and I were covering the Art of Mando season 2 and just saying, I know some of the stuff. I voiced the characters. I know I took my mask off. I know Pre took the mask off. I wanted to explore this. And so that's a bigger concept, but I can make those leaps if I need to.
Yeah, I think for me, it doesn't bother me. It's interesting. This is that kind of thing of like, well, that's fun to ask yourself, well, okay, why? Is there, are there different kinds of Beskar? Is this about knowing the vulnerability? There's lots of interesting stories to be had there. For me, the same way that, this group of Mandalorians don't take their helmet off. That's not, a conflict. That's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
One of my very, very favorite things is Two Saber Sidious, right? Because not only is it cool, it's the Revenge of the Sith, lightsaber logic that he loses one blade in a fight with Mace, but then he still has one for his fight with Yoda. So he's like, how many does he have? Well, at least 2.
Right. And I got to tell you, that's not a detail I've really ever paid too much attention until this episode, and also specifically just researching this episode. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. You would have too. Okay,
it's just
that makes sense.
It's just for me yet another reminder of like, things that could be like logic problems. Like obviously that's a logic problem. It has nothing to do with emotion, right? You don't need, for me, I don't need a scene in Revenge of the Sith where he's like, Commander Kagi, search the streets of Coruscant for my blade. Like I don't need that to explain how he got it back. And instead it opens up the perfectly logical explanation that he has 2. And because of it, we get this amazing scene. It's a gift. What could be, a logic problem or a ding for doing something quote unquote wrong instead is a gift.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, and I'm not saying I'm a hero for not getting caught up in that stuff. I just sometimes don't pay attention to those little details because I'm over here going, it's so cool, and I love it. So that it pays off even doubly more for me. A great moment, great answer, just kind of cool, man.
So cool. Good old Two Sabers Sidious.
Sidious.
Two more things. I had forgot that I knew that the full term Sensana spice had been used before, but having heard it so recently in Book of Boba Fett, it was fun to hear that just spoken aloud in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Sidious at the end of this arc is he is torturing Maul, saying he's not going to kill him. I have other uses for you. That sets up the events that are in the comic book story, Darth Maul, son of Dathomir, right?
Yeah, we are going to be taking a look at that here on Clone Wars Report soon enough after we finish the episode runs because it's a great little arc. It's from the Dark Horse days, the Dark Horse comic run, and they kept that in canon because of its obviously direct connection to the Clone Wars and the scripts that almost would have been and could have been.
Yeah, and it is. There's a ton that happens in it. For me, I'm really glad that it exists. It does feel like a tragedy that it did not get to be an actual full-blown Clone Wars episode. But there's just there's a lot of big ideas that get resolved in state of galaxy stuff. So anyway, love that, and I'm looking forward to discussing it. Was there any other canon stuff that you picked up on or read in behind the scenes that you'd like to touch on?
No, the only thing I noted here is it's one of those Kenobi character moments when he lands and he ends up first he's kind of dressed as Rick Hardeen, then my landing permit's up here, come with me, and he ends up knocking the Mando out and taking that outfit. I just thought of him saying there are alternatives to fighting to Solo. And everyone going undercover in New Hope. I wonder if that's the rest of the conversation we didn't hear. Of Kenobi going, there are alternatives to fighting. Let's get them up there. Let's take their outfits. Trust me, I've done this before.
Yeah, no, there is a pretty direct connection not only to the philosophy, but the actual action. There are all alternatives to fighting. Stealing clothes.
Yeah.
But it's a great Kenobi moment and a great look. Was there anything in this arc that you disliked or questioned or wrestled with besides back in the day the Black Sun characters?
Some of that stuff back in the day and the voices that I didn't like as much then and I love them now. No. I think the only thing it's like I get it. It's so you mentioned it's kind of tragic. It's so. Fortunate that some of the episodes they had planned couldn't come to fruition, and some later. Even this is the last regular season of the Clone Wars, right? I mean, we don't get much after the season 6 is lost episodes. Season 7 is a proper season, but in a different time, obviously. So there's just some about this. This one ends. I was thinking this was like a movie when I was sitting down to do the second round of notes, and we got basically a 2-hour movie. It ends on such an open beat because it was supposed to. So I don't dislike or question it, but if they had known, if they had had any indication where they wrapped it up any differently, would have been a 5-episode arc. I would have loved that as well. So it's just lost to time. There's no going back, but that's the only thing. The episode that the credits rolled on the 4th one, and I kind of was like, one more.
Yeah, I would love. I know. I think you're wise to say, we can't go back in time, and I'm super glad that the comic book exists to fill in the storytelling. But man, would I just love them to make that arc, because it's so tantalizing when it ends with I have another use for you. ... Yeah. So I think very good to say. I think for me, I just wanted to acknowledge Satine's death. Right. I think it is important to question deaths like this because it can become such a trope when a woman dies to further a man's story. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I've ever heard that discussion. I don't know if it's there or not. I don't know if people feel strongly about that. But I always, whenever I see a beat like that, I like to, for myself, ask, is this just a trope or is there more to it? And I have incredible respect for any opinion about this and happy to hear people's takes. I think for me, I think it really works because obviously it does impact Kenobi, but it is her story, right? That She fights so hard for pacifism, and that is just always going to be undermined at every turn. It's it feels like to me, it's about her journey, because this noble road that she tries to walk is extremely difficult, and it's always undermined by people like Maul, who need to make everything about domination and revenge and fear. So I think for me, the fact that this arc and her death is in service to her staying true to her ideals makes it for me, a good story beat. But I also just really want to be aware that that's a trope, and that I think those kind of moments should be questioned to me, made sure that they're not being used cheaply or disrespectfully.
Oh yeah, no, that's, I think every conversation, if you're creating going forward, you need to have that with yourself, for those on your teams. I think it's very valuable, and it's easy to look back. This is only 10 years ago, but I don't think this stuff was as questioned as much. It was just unfortunately suffered more, and now we get to have more open dialogue about it. I think it's tremendously valuable to look at it that way. I think this remains a pretty powerful one. You're right. I don't think she sacrifices anything about herself other than her life at the cost of everything. But again, that's part of the brave journey she takes. So it works. It does further Kenobi as well. But yeah, it's all part of it. It's very complete to me, but sad, tragic. And I'm okay with a good, sad, tragic death when done right.
Yeah. Very sad, very tragic death. And, I love that there's plenty of room to tell stories, certainly of Satine and Kenobi meeting, other encounters they might have had during the Clone Wars. But there's also just tons of room to tell other Satine stories. And she is definitely a character high on my list of I would love some more Satine stories.
A lot of blank space on the canvas, indeed.
Yeah. So is there anything that we have not talked about that you wanted to touch on in this great big arc?
Man, we hit all of it, man. We hit all of it, from Hondo jokes all the way up to the big deaths in action. This is absolutely, it's one of the best arcs for a reason, right? It's not overhyped. Yeah. It is what it is. It's great.
Yeah. So then all that's left to talk about is the toys. If you could have a figure or any kind of merch from this episode, who or what do you want?
There's so many things to choose from. I could make so many jokes. You could have Embo losing his helmet plush. Have his little pooch get his plush hat. But there's only one choice for me, and it's almost out of respect to you being a super Kenobi fan. We need a Mandalorian Kenobi.
Yes, we do.
That's my only answer. Give us that.
In every size. That was the only answer I wrote down. I could throw some joke ones out there about, you get an action set of all the different people who lost limbs or heads. That would be an expansive set. But the truth is, what I really want in all sizes is Obi-Wan Kenobi in Mandalorian Death Watch disguise with the removable helmet and everything. It's such a cool and specific Kenobi look. I would love that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. That's the answer.
Yeah, that is the answer. So next up, the end of Season 5, Episode 17 through 20, Ahsoka's Big Choice. Obviously, some big things in that arc, too, so we can't wait to dive in. Ken, what should the moral of this episode of our podcast be?
Oh, man, there's so many things to go on here, but a true podcast finds itself making brave choices to not sacrifice what it is. Be who you are. I don't even know what that means.
I think it's good advice. I was inspired. You want to let people know where they can find us?
Absolutely, everybody. We are the Force Center podcast feed. You can find us on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We are on Instagram and YouTube as well. Like our Facebook page, Force Center Podcast. You can get an audiobook on us by going to audibletrial.com/Force Center. Get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com, to link to all the other silly things I do. And Joseph, where can they go to find your stuff?
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out all of my other comedy adventures on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for 2 Saber Sidious, this has been the Clone Wars Report.